It's time to ignite your soul and unlock your full potential. Join us on Beneath the Helmet, the podcast exploring firefighters' health and wellness. Hosted by retired Fire Chief Arjuna George, our podcast is the perfect place to start your journey towards becoming the best version of yourself. So come on, let's join the conversation and find out what sets your soul on fire.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Another double whammy episode of Beneath the Helmet. Two beautiful episodes out this week. Last one was Wayne Jasper, episode number 44, and today, episode number 45. I get a chance to sit down with Fire Chief Dave Robertson. So Dave, I've been chatting with him for several years now. We share a passion of leadership, especially character-based leadership. So today our whole conversation is going to be about how we as a fire service can foster a better character-based leadership, especially at the recruit phase. When we're hiring these individuals coming on, let's concentrate a little bit more on the character and these people that are coming and going to be our future leaders. So why not get the best of the best for character? We put a lot of weight on certificates and degrees and diplomas, and I don't want to take anything away from those. Those are all very important, but we need to take character into extreme consideration, if not number one. So we have a chance to sit down. We're going to talk about some great things, some tools and strategies that he's used over the years, some insights about how we could look at recruitment a little bit different in regards to character base. And we're also going to talk about the framework that he really recommends in his episode here. So grab a pen and paper, take some notes. All the resources will be in the show notes. So sit back, relax, enjoy the show. Until next time, stay well. Next time, stay well. All right, welcome back, everyone. I got an amazing guest on the show today, season 2, Beneath the Helmet. I got a special friend of mine, a fellow colleague in the fire service, an ambassador in leadership, mental health, and we are going to talk some leadership today. So welcome to the show, Chief Dave Robertson.
Thank you very much for having me. I am, one of our go-to sayings in the fire department. Anytime you get introduced for anything, say, I am humbled to be here, but it's always nice. First of all, it's always nice to hear that from anybody, but it's always nice to be able to say it with sincerity. I look at your podcast lineup from season 1, Christopher Moore and Steve Sherbik was in there, and Christy Warren, who is actually a great friend of mine. We were just texting today. So there was this other guy on there, Arjuna George.
Never heard of him.
Yeah, he was all right. Yeah, he's all right. But I am sincerely, authentically humbled to be on this podcast, especially. So thank you.
So Chief, tell us a little bit about who you are and kind of where you came from and what brought you to where you are today.
Absolutely. I started in your neck of the woods, across the water in the Vancouver Lower Mainland, just outside of it, really, Lions Bay, British Columbia. I was a suit for many years. I spent a decade in and out of marketing agencies, ad agencies around Canada, and I ended up getting recruited out to Vancouver, which is how I moved from my home Ontario to the Vancouver area. I hung up my suit and became a ski instructor. But being a 29-year-old guy, we're not the greatest, forward thinkers in the world. Didn't quite realize that there wasn't a lot of snow in the summertime. Seriously. I kind of woke up one day. I'm like, okay, well, now what? And I wanted to become involved in the little town that I was, a little ski area that I was living in. And I went to the town hall and they told me that it was Wednesday night and they're looking for volunteers in the fire department. And that's very much how I became a volunteer. I was not a volunteer for long. I had a fantastic training officer, very much a presence in, especially in British Columbia. His name is Bob Allen, auto extrication guru, kind of handled all of the auto extrication rescue infrastructure on the highway leading to the Olympics. in Whistler. He was their go-to guy. And Bob put me through my paces very quickly. And I ended up a career firefighter pretty quickly, very much by accident. Met someone from California. So I moved down to California, and punched out most of my career there. I had mentioned earlier, Christy Warren. Well, it turns out we actually worked essentially one municipality away from each other. So we worked very much in the same kind of system.
Yeah, she was Berkeley, right?
She was Berkeley, and it basically went Berkeley, then Oakland, and then Alameda. I was Alameda. And essentially due to mutual aid contracts, I was working in Oakland all the time. Anyways, it's almost like one large city over there in a way. So I did that. I was in Alameda. I was over in Marin County. I was a neighbor of Robert Redford for a while. That was kind of that was interesting. And then moved over to Napa County in the Napa Valley. So great wine, lots of wildfires. Working under the Cal Fire purview there. Hung that up. Came back home to Canada for a job that I accepted 2 months before COVID in Canada. Timing, it almost goes back to me being the 29-year-old knucklehead. It didn't realize there was no snow in the summertime. I rolled out of California March 19th of COVID. So I think that was, they had just canceled St. Patrick's Day 2 days before. The NHL and the NBA were March 18th, I believe. So the world was shutting down and I was driving out of town. So yeah, it's been a very interesting 4 years for me. The last place I ended up, was back in my home, Ontario, in Lambton Shores as Deputy Chief of Trading. And now I'm looking for the next great thing.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's essentially my background.
Yeah. Beautiful.
With a smattering of other weird things in there. I kind of have a life credo, AJ, and I have a feeling you do it too. And that is, essentially say yes to everything. Don't overthink opportunities. I hear this, so I coach, people through the recruiting process, especially. I also coach, company officers and chiefs, but especially people that are moving through the application process. And I'm always hearing the same thing, well, I don't want to take that job, working for my uncle as a plumber at 22 years old, because what if it does this? And what if it does that? And what if I don't get to do this? I'm like, well, what if a whole bunch of great stuff comes out of it? I feel people sometimes put obstacles in front of opportunities instead of just saying, yeah, and then seeing what happens. And consequently running concurrent with my fire career, I've been a concert photographer. I have written for glossy lifestyle magazines. I have been private chef. I've done some bodyguard work. I mean, it's just like somebody says, hey, have you thought of, yeah, I'll do that. And like, well, I haven't told you yet, Dave. It's like, it doesn't matter. I'm still going to enjoy it.
Yeah. You never know. You might fall in love with that, right? And change a total different direction.
Absolutely.
Fire was most of your life. And then all of a sudden, boom, you're going to be a personal chef for Robert Redford, right? So who knows?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Or, you might write a book.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's essentially been my trajectory over the last 25-ish years. I think I entered the fire service same year as you, 97, more or less, 96, 97. It's a bit gray. One of the things that guys don't do is we don't circle dates on the calendar, right? But it was somewhere in that ballpark.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I know through different programs that we're associated with and memberships, and we meet quite often in different world cafes and different meetings through the Canadian Fire Chiefs. We both have a real passion for leadership. But I know you also have a real passion for a special kind of leadership, character-based leadership. I'd love to hear just maybe your definition of what that means in a nutshell, because I think it's a bit of a new term, but I think the concept is not new. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on what character-based leadership is, in your opinion.
Absolutely. And you're right. It is in some ways new, and it is in other ways not new. So let me talk about the new part first. I think we're only just starting to frame leadership. I mean, all the leadership, the more progressive leadership initiatives have really come about in the last 25-ish years. Um, uh, you go into any high-end commercial kitchen and the head chef is still screaming and yelling in the kitchen, right? We still have a ways to go. A lot of this is still very new leadership initiatives in general.
The fire service.
Especially in the fire service, because it was, the biggest growth areas in the fire service typically came after major conflicts, major wars, World War I, World War II, and Vietnam War. Especially, we got another bit of a bump in terms of some level of progressive thinking after the Mideast conflicts, like the Desert War. Not nearly as much. But yeah, it's always been a very, because we got such a heavy influx of vets into the fire service after those conflicts. The carryover of the paramilitary organization was easy, right? I got barked at as a recruit, when I was at Paris Island, learning to be a Marine. So it makes sense for me to either be barked at as a new recruit in this fire department, or to be the guy who's barking at somebody. Because, the fire ground's a battleground, and this is how we do it. Damn it. Suck it up. And, the pattern. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners probably do as well. So thankfully we're moving away from that, with some new great initiatives. One that comes to mind, a common friend of ours, Jamie Reichard, who I think was your first ever guest on Beneath the Helmet.
He was, yes.
Just a champion young man. He'll laugh if he listens to this and hears young man, but he's younger than me. So,
yeah, he's
and he's pretty closely aligned with the Ivy School of Business, the University of Western Ontario, who are really forwarding a lot of these character-based leadership ideas. But again, they're only just at the forefront. They're just learning how to, how do you quantify that? Okay, so we've got this organization like the Canada Revenue Agency. They have an internal posting. We need 5 new regional directors. I'm making all this up, by the way. They need 5 new regional directors. We're going to have an internal posting, but we want to hire people based on character. So we're going to interview them. Okay, well, what's character? What are the attributes of character? How do we actually flag those attributes in an interview answer? How do we grade those answers? So we're only at the forefront. We're just starting to figure it out. But it's also at the same time, that was kind of the new thing. It's also very, very old. The concepts of the virtues of character go back to Plato, Aristotle, Socrates. These are the things, they're virtues. These are things like empathy, kindness, courage, resilience. I'm trying to remember I think it's, it's a little gray because Socrates famously didn't write anything down. So all of our history about Socrates is oral only. But there's either 3 or 5 core virtues of character. Justice, resilience, courage. We'll call it 3. That way I don't have to push myself to find the other 2. I had to mentally, sift through the dust up here and find the other 2. So it's a very old idea. But over the years, we've made it a bit of a garbage term, right? That guy's got character. Okay, well, Well, what do you mean? Do you mean you talked about Inspector Clouseau? He is a character. Is it like, is that what you're talking about? Or is he just a good person? Well, okay. Well, yeah, he's just a good person. Well, define good. And you can kind of see people's eyes cross when you really, when you really push a little bit and try to have them define what character is. The ideas of character, the core ideas of character are very old. They're easily found with a little bit of research. I regret not actually having them right in front of me. The Ivy School of Business actually has a fantastic matrix out there that they have made public. And I've just moved offices. I typically have it posted sitting right in front of me.
Yeah. It's a good framework. We'll make sure that's in the show notes.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a fantastic idea. So going and putting all that together into character-based leadership. There are two things that come to mind. One of them is leadership in general. So we have a new company officer, we have a new chief officer. For our other first responders out there, that may be somebody of rank, or somebody that ends up stepping into a position of authority. And either somebody within their organization, maybe somebody superior to them, is recognizing some gaps in the caliber of their character or some areas of character. And we're trying to move these people that are midstream in their careers towards infusing what they do and how they navigate their position, whatever that position is, through the lens of the virtues of character. Okay. I hope that made sense.
Mm-hmm.
This is, I think, why you're seeing a lot of, and thankfully, I think it's great that we're seeing them. I think this is why we're seeing a lot of coursework now that has to do with command mindset, right? And how to lead with character. I'm very happy that we're seeing this. We're starting to see definitely a rise in people being willing to kind of get away from that, the days when you made rank, it made you a leader, right? And of course, that definition has changed since, rank does not equal leadership. It still gets in my craw a little bit, actually, AJ, when people say, when you get into a position of leadership, and no, it's a position of authority, right? Leadership is an approach and an attitude.
Yeah. You can be a fire chief and have poor leadership or no leadership skills.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My thing specifically, though, and having to do with character-based leadership, is way back at the hiring stage. So we look at, here's a bad example. We're having some ethical issues in the fire service. We've long had some ethical issues in the fire service, but I think they're coming to light, first of all, because everybody's got a camera now. So you can't hide any of those questionable ethical issues. The second thing is, I think the citizenry at large is starting to look to us to not be, the 6'3", broad shouldered, brush cutted, I just did my 2 tours and wherever kind of person. They do see their first responders, their firefighters or fire captains through a different lens now. And I think they kind of expect something better. And so we're starting to move that way, but sorry, I'm going to take a wee bit of a step back. I'm talking about some questionable ethical issues, but we're still having, it was about some of these ethical issues becoming a little more apparent. So we're having these issues with a captain okaying an engine driving strippers from bar to bar, right? Or there's a large city in the US where not once, but twice, because it was tradition, they actually would hire some women of ill repute and would go down to the main square in the city, beautiful fountains, whatnot, and they would have them basically physically draped all over the fire engine, take photos, and that was the ha-ha Christmas card. Well, somebody's okaying that, right? Some captain's okaying that, some chief is okaying that, somebody is allowing that level of culture to blossom and to consistently be reinforced. Well, somebody hired that guy way back in the day. And while I like the initiatives midstream, my thing is hiring for character. I want us to start hiring for character. Right? We can go into a room with 10 chiefs. We can have a conversation with them. And you come away and it's like, well, that guy's got great character and that guy's got great, and that person needs some work and that. But we can assess their character to some extent. And going back a few minutes, we do have organizations that are starting to quantify that. Right.
Yeah, that was my question. Do you have a thought in mind of how that works?
On how to quantify that? There are some ways. Yeah. So I do want to answer your question, but I want to finish this one thought, and that's about hiring for character. Well, we should be able to, out of all the applications that we get, I'm very close to a city where they have 2 academies of 56 per year. They still get somewhere between 2 and 2,500 applications. And you're telling me that out of 2,500 applications, we cannot assess people properly to find the right 56? And that's somewhere down the road. There's going to be an ethical issue that it should not be happening, frankly.
Yeah, not our first rodeo.
No, exactly. Your question though was how, can you repeat that for me, AJ?
Well, I'm just curious if you have any thoughts in mind of how we start incorporating that into the recruit interview stage, how to quantify that, and how to actually identify those characteristics that we want to look for in those candidates, and how to actually, score that or have some defense and why you're selecting this one person.
That's a great question. One of the things, in terms of how we do that, I take a look at what we do currently, right? So the current hiring is, you go through your physical, you use some level of background check. You're going to write an aptitude test, whatever that looks like. There's some private organizations that do it. There's just general civic aptitude tests. And, we have them run through the same 4, 5, 6, 7 steps, more or less. When you need to have certifications A, B, C. But remember, and this is us finger wagging them, but remember, everything happens in the interview room. That's where the job is won or lost, right? This is where we really get to know you, right? And we're going to find out what you're going to be like in the next 25 or 30 years in uniform. Awesome. Put all this weight on the interview process, and we bring him in and we say, okay, so you got a half an hour. Okay. So first of all, okay, how serious are we?
Yep.
Or we're setting you up for the next 30 years, but we're going to figure that out in the next 30 minutes, which is never 30 minutes, right? Introductions, Q&A, all that kind of stuff. It's more like 22. So we do that, but then we sit them in the interview chair, all this weight behind it. And we say, so where do you see yourself in 5 years? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Or some other pedestrian question.
Yep.
So your captain wants you to throw a 24-foot ladder solo, but you have a hurt shoulder. What do you do? And I'm sitting and I'm hear these questions and I'm like, this is our peeling away the onion? It's not. We're not at all doing it. So I think that's one of the problems. I did hear your question where it's a bigger question than what you thought. We said, how do we figure that out? Right. And how do we eventually quantify it? I think one of the things is to get away from that interview construct is part of the problem.
Okay.
Part of the problem is the hand raise. That's also part of the interview construct, right? I've been part of it. Chief comes in. It just happens to be B shift. So he's not even getting a cross section. Chief comes in. So in about 2 weeks, we're going to have about 3 days of interviews. Anybody here want to be on the interview panel? And that's okay. We'll get the questions to you. And that is the level of preparation. A quick sidebar. I am in conversation with the city of Vancouver, and they're doing some pretty great things in terms of prepping their interview panelists. They're running them through bias training and, that sort of thing. But the interview construct across North America is very typically, there's the hand raise. It is always either 3 or 4 people, right? It is a white shirt, some level of chief, often somebody from rank, somebody from HR, and sometimes you'll get an outlier who might be a scribe or maybe somebody representing the union, something like that, right? But it's always 3 or 4, right? And this person comes in, usually somebody young. So I'm going to say kids, this kid comes in, they get there 30 or 45 minutes to try desperately to tell about how they're this great person that's going to inhabit their uniform for the next 25 years. We come up with answers, right? Whatever the scribe ends up being able to get down, we don't even know if they're scribing right.
Yeah.
Kid leaves, right? And we get the chin wags as we look at each other. So you like that guy? Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Well, all of a sudden you're falling into groupthink almost immediately. Like okay, so I guess we're all going to give him an 8 out of 10. Right. The scoring's never that easy, but for illustration, we're all, we're going to give him an 8 out of 10. Right? Did you get down that second question? That was a good answer, right? Yeah, it was good. Yeah. And that's it. This is our level of investigative interviewing. So
much of an
first step, it's not.
Yeah.
So first step is getting away from all that. That's the first thing. Second thing is there are definitely ways to start quantifying this. One of them is, and I'm going to be very frank here, and that is, we're only on the forefront of learning how to quantify care, right? My 7 out of 10 might be your 9 out of 10, right? Because we're bringing so much into it. So even when we filter out things like, cognitive bias and unconscious biases and affirmative bias, all the biases, even if we are adept enough as interviewers to filter all that out, you're still coming with your level of education, experience, life experience, your professional acquaintances and what you have invested in conversations with them. All that's going to still filter into your grading. So if we only do have 3 people grading, it's not enough. So it has to be a more expansive panel. And this is where one of the great things is happening with this, and it's the multiple mini interviews, the MMI interviews. So that comes out of med school, actually. So they were finding, I think, believe it or not, a Canadian institution. It was the University of Toronto. And they were finding out there are all these ethical issues coming out when doctors were hitting the floor. Right? So they weren't assessing them for any level of bedside manner. So they came up with these multiple mini interviews so that instead of talking to one doctor or 3 doctors, right, almost like the fire interview construct, they would have short questions and they would have a dozen of them or 15 with 15 different interviewers. So now I have you come into a room, here's your question. Thank you very much. You leave, bop, bop, bop. So I can end up getting access to 25 or 30 interviewees in a day, as does everybody else, the other 14 or whatever, 19 interviewers. And we combine all of our answers. And because it's a little more longitudinal, sorry, one coffee too many. It's a little more expansive of an interview panel. It's going to be far more accurate in numbering out and actually grading them. And it also allows us to ask a number of quick questions.
And I've been guilty of it myself. I definitely remember first I did so many interviews as an officer in the fire service. I think I almost did the last decade of recruits, but classic, what's your 5-year plan? What a cookie cutter question that was. And
Oh yeah, I've done
so much
it too.
wiser now. So much wiser now.
you know what, I think we're not asking ourselves, you know, we, it's the old conundrum, right? The two things that firefighters don't like is they don't like change and they don't like the way things are.
Yes.
And this is a change.
Mhm.
I'm reminded of a town. I don't want to name the town. But I'm reminded of a town where I was actually involved with a few of the recruits. And they said, so I've got the interview questions. I said, you have the interview questions? He said, oh yeah. Like, I mean, this floats around among the recruits
Yeah.
for the last 10 years or so.
Yep.
And it was this photocopy of a photo from many years ago. And it's an open secret that you even know what the questions are going to be. And then we're shocked that 5 years down the road, this person that has an awesome mustache and looks great in navy blue and gave us the right script, right? We're shocked that they're now an ethical issue, but now they're in a union and we can't get rid of them, right? And they're going out there on calls and they're dropping F-bombs on calls and they're not treating each other well. And we have to move them around stations and that costs us money and time and effort, aside from the harm it does to our culture of our individual departments.
Yeah.
So back to the beginning, let's start hiring for character.
Yeah. It messes with our perception of how the community sees us as well, right? The fire service has always been highly regarded as a trustworthy, professional, group of people that are serving the communities. But the more and more you see things in the news, such as, recent news in Montana with the fire chief, is like that just taints so much of what we try to do on a regular basis, right? So
It absolutely, yeah, it really does. It really does.
you mentioned the union environment. It'd be interesting to see how do you envision that working in a union environment when it's primarily based on seniority is how that union system works. And a lot of fire services are unionized, and that's going to be maybe a hurdling issue that we're going to have to try to get over. Any thoughts there of how that would, or have you any examples of people having success with that, where they're looking at character maybe a little bit more than seniority? So
Yeah.
promotion
So there's
process.
actually two answers there. And while there are so many commonalities across North America between Canada and the US and the fire service, one of the differences is the seniority system for company officer.
Mhm.
Where in Canada, while there are so many great things that are happening in the Canadian Fire Service, one of them is not becoming a company officer by merit. It's often by how long have you inhabited the uniform.
Exactly.
And we know what happens there, right? I mean, I've got 20 years experience. Okay. Well, what have you done? Well, I've gone on auto extrication calls only for 20 years. Okay. Well, that would be a great expertise. How are you at structure fires? Yeah, I haven't been on one, but I got 20 years experience. Right. And so now I'm going to be your captain. Now that's definitely a far-fetched example. I realize that.
Yeah,
But
maybe
but
more
I
of a
think,
volunteer or paid on call environment that could totally happen, 100%.
yeah, oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Or someone that, so the cards fall well for them and they're able to sit in the same station for 25 years, more or less. And they become a captain in that station. And, it becomes this complacency that I think because they're human beings, right? But it doesn't allow, someone who's been in for 10 years that is studying and studying and studying and studying, and they want more and they want to do better and they want to have that extra level and that extra layer of influence that comes with that higher position of authority. And they're not able to. In the States, it is definitely far more based on merit.
Interesting.
Yeah. My own situation, um, uh, frankly, it was too easy. If you were in for 5 years at the end of your probation, after probation, so it was really 6.5 years, in for 6.5 years, you could put in a letter of intent to act as a captain. You had a sign-off binder. Some people could punch it out in a month. So in 6.5 years and a month, you're running the show. It was a little too easy. I've got a good friend, Don Pemberton, who is, he's a firefighter and a company officer candidate, in Nevada. And he outlined what it was that they had to go through. And they have to go through an officer's academy, an internal one, and they are required a certain number of officer certifications, and a lot of it is soft skill stuff as well as hard operational stuff. And it is an extensive program, and that is just to sit in the interview chair. And I think that is legitimate merit.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So they're not all the same. They're not all the same. So how would you do that in a union environment? I think I broke it out at Canada and the US because it's in the context of that question, it is two different worlds, right?
And maybe it's a cultural shift that we have to, eventually get to where, I'm assuming the IAFF wants to have good people working in their membership, right? They want good people. They want people with character. So this very well could be, a movement that takes years to get to, but hopefully we can get there, right?
Well, hey, if we keep hiring people based on the merits of their character,
Yeah.
right? As opposed to they look like a character out of Chicago Fire.
Yeah.
If we keep pushing for that, it's going to be those bodies that eventually inhabit the union management.
Exactly.
And they will be leading from within, within the union. Even if they're not holding positions of authority within the union, they can sway votes, they can drive conversations. So yeah, I think you're right. I think it's an inflection point right now for the fire service.
I could
In
see
that context.
Yeah, I could see in 10 years we're basically resetting how we hire. If we look at this as our foundational hiring process is looking at character. In 10 years, our potential people with authority / leaders are going to be those people that we hired that are high in character, right? So we're actually going to do that reset over time, right? So
I'm excited for the fire service because we're seeing moves towards that. We definitely are. I don't know. I wish it was happening faster.
What would be your dream to see the benefits that would come out of this? Like, what would be the benefits of somebody listening right now saying, all right, I'm going to start changing this in my volunteer station or my career station, whatever that looks like. What are the benefits down the road, do you think?
Well, I think the benefits, I mean, it would be a grocery list of benefits. In the end, I think you end up people that are a little less entitled. There's definitely a faction in the fire service that when they put on the uniform, an extra swagger gets put into their step, if you know what I mean. And I think that's sometimes the birthing place of some ethical issues. Entitlement equals a certain level of being above the rules. So I think you will have less ethical issues. There's obvious monetary costs that are involved with that often, especially in the States with lawsuits and buyouts and whatnot. People going on admin leave for several years as things get weeded out over whatever ethical issue that they were put on admin leave for. The cultural fallout can be nothing but positive. I am. It's interesting. I had mentioned earlier that a good friend of mine is Christy Warren, and I did listen to her podcast with you recently in prepping for this, and she was talking about some of the problems that initially were happening in her department, and that very much was mirrored in mine. You would think that it'd be something of a regional issue because we worked in the same area. Another good friend of mine actually speaks at FDIC many years running on dealing with difficult people. He had received as a chief death threats to him and his family. This is a cancer, right? Having that kind of person or people, and the eventual group thing that comes along with that, the hangers on that are like, yeah, what he said. Yeah, we don't like Merle, the new kid, because he said we shouldn't. Now, it's not that obvious, but you know how groupthink works.
Yeah.
So I think the positive cultural fallout would be fantastic. I think it would go back to what the fire service really is, which is a brotherhood and sisterhood. We bandy those words about, but really, I mean, the more I'm in this, the more I'm hearing, it's brotherhood, except for where I work. And you talk to the next person. Well, it's the brotherhood, man. But I got to tell you about this time that was really bad, and we treated all these women horribly. Well, isn't brotherhood and sisterhood? I think right now we're not in a good place culturally.
Yeah, I would agree.
Frankly.
Yep, I would agree 100%.
And I think the cultural fallout would be very, very positive if we start infusing the ranks with people of higher moral fiber.
Love it. So you mentioned before about the paramilitary kind of style of the birth of the fire service in North America, people leaving from World War I and such.
Mm-hmm.
What's your view on that status of the paramilitary status moving forward? Is there a benefit? Is it always going to be there? Or do you see that it could go to the wayside and we could adapt new concepts of leadership?
I think it's not, I don't think it's a very, it doesn't have to be a binary proposition. Like, let's leave it or not leave it. Let's, do it or not do it. I think it can be, I think at the inception of someone's career at the recruit level, is installing that toggle button, that fireground toggle button, which is the reality is I have more mileage and training and levels of situational awareness. And so if I say something on the fireground or on a tough medical call or a middle of the night auto X, and I say, stop, move, freeze, let's do this, it might come as a bit of a bark, but it is a legitimate safety and operational issue. On the other hand, there's no reason why that has to carry over into the firehouse, into the day-to-day, into the lighter parts of training, into how we even walk. I remember walking around with my crew. It was like a gang walking down the street. Right. It was the truck. It was the engine. It was the squad. The only person that wasn't there was the chief. We were all going for coffee. People got out of our way. Never paid for coffee. So I think the paramilitary stuff does not need to inhabit, every element. I think there can be an element of it. I'm saying all this very carefully, by the way. I've never been posed that question. It's an excellent question, I think.
Yeah, it's a very sensitive one, right? Because the fire service is built on that. But I'm on the same boat as you. I think that's situational. I think in the fireground, chain of command, unity command, paramilitary structure of ranks, that has its place for sure. But nobody should be treated like dirt when they get back to the fire station just because they have a 3 stripes on their shoulder or 4 stripes or whatever that looks like.
And the probie thing comes to mind. It's always amazed me, even when I was, a probie myself. It's like, okay, so my probationary period at fire department ABC is 18 months, and I'm going to be treated like shit until 18 months and a day, and you're all magically going to treat me better.
Yeah.
Well, no, it doesn't happen that way. I think the probationary thing somehow over time, culturally, has given us license to teach you what it's really like, to find out if you really fit in. We never do that as kids. We didn't do that in school. You know, hey, new kid, welcome from, wherever you're from. You know what? We think you're kind of nice. Deep down, we think you're kind of cool and nice, but we're going to treat you like an asshole for the first 2 years of your time here at elementary school until we figure that you fit in. Well, no, it's, we don't, the fire service is one of the only places where this still happens. And thankfully it is going by the wayside. I am heartened by the positive stuff coming out of, I see a lot of positive stories coming into my feed, being led by, people like yourself and, just who did I talk to recently? I talked to Chief Chuck Ryan, who's the chief of the Tucson Fire Department, and just a sharp guy, and he's all about kindness, right? You don't need to walk softly and carry a big stick. It's okay to just walk softly.
Well, the image that pops in my head is Chief Brunacini, like, be nice. That was his
Kindness
motto,
rules.
right?
Be nice. Be nice.
Be nice.
Absolutely. Be nice. Yeah, that's bringing it back full circle to character-based leadership and away from hiring for character specifically. Is I am part of an ad hoc group of people, some fire service thought leaders. I don't like saying the word leaders because I suffer pretty significantly from imposter syndrome. So, but some people that are like-minded, and it's very much about trying to get character-based leadership installed formally into levels of fire service curriculum. A great place to start in the States, at least, is with the Executive Fire Officer program. At the National Fire Academy in Canada, we've got the Executive Chief Fire Officer program, which is a level of competencies. And it wouldn't be that hard to instill even a few character-based competencies into the ECFO.
Yeah.
But this group, we informally call ourselves the CBL, character-based leadership, CBL baggers. Have you heard of the baggers group?
Well, I've heard of the CBL group, but not the baggers. No.
Okay. So this will be a good little story for your audience, for your fire service audience. So for those of you that don't know, Chief George talked about Alan Brunacini. Alan Brunacini, very much the granddad and one of the greater thought leaders of the modern day fire service. One of the ones that instilled some of the better parts of, from an operational standpoint, command and command presence, but also spoke about being nice and remembering that Mrs. Smith is calling us at midnight, and to her it really is an emergency. So customer service being at the core of what we do. So Alan Brunacini, with these progressive ideas, would start checking in with people at various conferences. And they all said, you know what, we've got all these ideas, but they're really, people aren't liking them right now. Why don't we just, we're having this hallway conversation at FDIC in Indianapolis. Why don't we meet for a golf game? And so they would get together, and the get-togethers became bigger and bigger, and they became these kind of events. And the International Association of Fire Chiefs, the IAFC, got wind of this, that all these chiefs were getting together. So the IAFC reached out to Brunacini and said, look, you're all chiefs, you're all meeting on the fire service. We have to be involved. And he said, no, I'm sorry. This is private. This is our own thing on our own dime. No, you can't. And there was kind of this push and shove for a number of years, until finally the IAFC pretty much caved and said, look, next time you get together, can you just get a photo of the group and we can use it in our communications, and then we'll get out of your hair. And he said, you know what? Yeah, we'll do that. So apparently it was somewhere in the Carolinas, I think. And they go for their big weekend, and they all meet. This is much the same group that met for Wing Spread as well, which is a more formal meeting, but also thinking about the fire service in a very progressive way. So they're done their weekend, and they're essentially at the last event. He says, okay, everybody, we've got to get this picture for the IAFC. He hired a photographer. Everybody gets together. We're all lined up.
Hawaiian shirts, I'm sure, right?
What's that?
Hawaiian shirts, I'm sure.
And probably Hawaiian shirts in honor of Bruno. That's right. He wore the Hawaiian shirts. What an unlikely fire hero. He's such a great image.
Yeah.
And he gave them all, like the Unknown comic, gave them all bags put over their heads. Professional photo of all these people with bags over their head. They became the baggers.
I've never heard this.
Yeah, they became the baggers. So we are unofficially, and as homage, not at all like we say it very humbly, but we are the CBL baggers.
Nice. Can't wait for the group Photoshop.
So yeah,
That's awesome. That's a good story.
Yeah. It is.
How can people learn more about, maybe incorporating this into their life? Is there any resources that you would recommend directing people to?
I think there's not enough out there yet. I think one of the people I'm going to direct them to on social media is our common friend Jamie Reichard, who very much he is a champion of a number of things. Sound psychological health, the application of a lot of sports methodologies towards firefighters and navigating the hard parts of being a firefighter is one of them. I think looking into the Ivy School of Business, University of Western Ontario has made public a lot of their findings. They're just in the process of collecting some data on this. So a lot of this stuff is new and midstream for them. But they do have some anecdotes out there. And I don't know if there's actually white papers out there yet on any of this, but they definitely have, there's some communication out there on what they're doing with the Seattle Kraken, with the Canadian Revenue Service, Canadian Revenue Agency, among others. So there's some good stuff there. There's a gentleman by the name of Dave Anderson who very much writes about character in the modern day fire service.
Great book, by the way. Great book.
Yes. And I've had the opportunity to meet and talk to him, and he's a hell of a guy too.
Yeah, I would agree.
On top of that, so there's a solid book to get. Man, I wish I was done my book because I am working on mine.
Excellent.
Yes, and it is all about character in the fire service.
Oh, I can't wait.
A lot of the things that we spoke about. So it'll be a background on, what do you mean by character? I mean, going back to the start of this podcast, people will go into a room and say, that guy's got character. And now, well, what does that mean? It's almost like the U.S. Supreme Court justice when he made a ruling. I always forget his name, but it made a ruling on pornography, right? And, well, what is pornography? You need to define it. He says, well, I'll know it when I see it. And so you apply that. A lot of people apply that principle to character. I know it when I see it. Well, that's just not good enough. Hiring somebody at 100 or 120 grand a year,
Totally.
right? And then paying them out a pension for the rest of that. And most importantly, is charged with protecting our citizenry. That's just not good enough.
Yeah. And for those chief rank officers that are listening, it's also less headaches for you down the road. We got enough stress in our lives to deal with. We don't need HR issues, right? So.
Well, yeah. I mean, how this, right? When you were a chief, you ask a room full of chiefs, what is the biggest problem? What is the biggest headache that you consistently have? And they almost always say HR.
Yeah.
If I could take HR off my desk, things would be much, much better.
Yeah. But maybe we can be proactive and reduce that plate of HR issues, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Is there any questions that you wish I asked that I have not asked you?
That in itself is a great question. I can't think of anything. I'm gonna refer back to a couple of sheet notes that I had, and I want to make sure that I don't know if there's specifically a question that you would have asked me, but trying to marry up the sort of the credo of your podcast, right? The ignite your soul, unleash your full potential. I look at the company and chief officers that are being faced with needing to elevate their ethical selves midstream in their career. And I look at those people in positions of authority that are hiring and my drive to having them instill character criteria in their hiring practices. And then I also want to fold in the actual recruits that to quote, I don't have an okay to quote her, but it is the chief of recruitment for the city of Toronto. So significant recruiting effort, who, when talking to me one day on his own, we were talking about applicants and she held up, I'm going to swear, just a heads up, she held up somebody's resume and she said, I wish they would stop with all the fucking certifications. Right. So for the recruits, it's about starting to recognize what the virtues of character are and how to best display those in the interview room and in your probationary period. Because it ends up setting your moral compass, true north. And if you follow your moral compass, you're never steered far wrong.
Pretty hard to get yourself in trouble if you don't lie and tell the honest truth, right?
It's just not rocket. The virtues of character are not rocket science. It's just they end up getting polluted by the stuff of life. And in the fire service, sometimes the stuff of life is some of the things I brought up, like groupthink, right? Or the cultural earworm that gets in there that eventually, it's not right when you hit the floor day one, but by year 5, this is the way we do it. It's a shoulder shrug. That's just not good enough. That's not good enough.
Through this whole conversation, there's a character, I'll actually say a character, that pops into my mind every word you say. And I recently just did a presentation on this, is Ted Lasso. And I would say Ted Lasso knocks and checks every one of these boxes that we've been talking about as a character-based leader and somebody who's leading with compassion, empathy, really likes the human aspect of being a leader. I'm just blown away with this fictional character, Ted Lasso, and how important it is for the fire service to maybe look at him as an example, for sure. Any thoughts there?
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, he's kind of looking over your right shoulder. I see the bobblehead.
He is. Yes.
I follow you on social media, so he's shown up a couple times recently, and I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Sure, it was a produced and flick show. I am a huge fan of the show, so I did not mean that in any sort of a criticism, but it's, so it's maybe not exactly like real life, but I think as an ideal, there was even some foreshadowing early on where he's like, how are you going to do this? You're a football coach. Said, I don't really care how we do. I'm all about just making them better people.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so he had last up the character laid it out. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make them better people. I don't really care about soccer or sports.
Yeah. So he losing.
So that was one thing that stuck in my mind, was that he knew right away he had that goal in mind. But it was also a struggle for him. And I think that maybe that is the dose of realism. I can sit here on a podcast and I can drop all these lofty platitudes about, just change your interview construct, or if you're a recruit, really drive towards elevating your ethical selves. Trying to follow the virtues of character. Really, in a way, it's simple, right? You and I just said that it's simple. Don't lie, don't cheat, work hard. It isn't. The scenes of Ted Lasso on his own, freezing up his own manifestation of PTSD. He couldn't speak. He would curl up into a ball. He had to shut off life.
Yep.
It was real. He was vulnerable. This is not an easy path. This is a tough. We talk about the journey. Just enjoy the journey. Well, sometimes the journey there's potholes and there's windstorms and there's a flat tire and sure, it's a journey, and try to enjoy your journey. It is a journey. So I can sit here and drop all these lofty platitudes about character and hiring for character and infusing the fire service with character-based leadership. But I also want to recognize it's not easy, but is there anything out there that's worth it?
Yep.
That it is easy.
And I think that's why it resonated so much with me, is because it's not just all, unicorns and butterflies. He was showing the real struggles of being a leader in today's society. Right. So, and a team sport, in my opinion, is very similar to the fire service. So.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. Chief,
So,
how can people get to contact you if they want to reach out to you or learn more about you?
well, I am never afraid to drop my my number on a podcast. I take that cue from the late great Bobby Halton, and then I ended up calling him, texting him. Yeah, everybody in the fire service knows who Bobby Halton is, but he actually, I told him I was going to become a training chief. He said, he texted me back, said, Dave, I have no doubt you're going to be the best training chief ever. And then he passed away almost right after that. So, but he always put his phone number out there. So if somebody's got a pen and paper, yes, people still use that. So I'm at 519-384-3072. You can also reach me at Chief Robertson, Robertson, at fire. And then there's a hyphen edge, like standing on the edge, or burnt around the edges.
Yeah, that's it.
So it's chief.robertson at fire-edge.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, and you can find me on Facebook. And I've got a website for my career coaching. Just like you, AJ, I'm very humbly, first of all, I am fabulously blessed, but I am very humbly just trying to make my tiny little corner of the fire service better. Right. So if anybody does reach out to me, they'll pick up on, yeah, I'll work with you, but I just want you to be better.
Beautiful. Chief, this is going to be a new question that I ask in season 2. And since we talked a lot about leadership, it might not resonate 100%, but I want to kind of poll my guests of what's the biggest area in your life in the fire service that you need more support in.
Wow. I have never been comfortable with the area that I would need more support in is the acceptance of some level of progressive thinking. Not progressive thinking itself, it's the acceptance of it. It is having a safe atmosphere around a conference table with a bunch of chiefs, in a conference, on a Zoom with whatever committee, sitting in the black chairs and the lazy boys in the day room in the firehouse, is having a safe place to actually speak your mind about some of the progressive parts of the fire service. I think that's one of our biggest downfalls is culturally it still feels dangerous to stick your neck out there.
Yeah, for sure.
The fear of retribution is very real. So that's that I think is one of the biggest areas. I even as I'm saying things, I'm like, am I going to get a phone call? Am I going to have somebody? Because I have, frankly, I've said things that are they're not popular, they're not liked. Where the hell's my mustache? PFOS be damned. all that kind of stuff. It's, yeah. So I think that's one of the biggest areas is if everybody would just calm the hell down, just calm down. Somebody's just giving their opinion.
Amen on that one.
Yeah.
I'm on that journey as well.
Yeah.
I've had people comment on episodes and like, that's BS. Whatever that person said, that's BS. I'm like, really? This is the person's story. So, and I don't even engage. I used to engage. I used to stress about it. I used to worry about it. No.
Yeah.
I'm helping more people share people's messages than I am not sharing them. So,
and giving me the opportunity to speak on this podcast, you've had a number of people that have come in, and they've talked about PTSD or PTSI, because it is PTSI. It's stress injury. We know that now. And that's actually very much why I started pursuing the virtues of character as a framework that we need to work within in the fire service. Is I had, and I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, even though I know you would give me the time very kindly. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of giving that whole story because it's actually a significant story. So in very short order, I had a number of issues that converged into one tight time frame. And one of those issues, and possibly the greatest of those issues, was the organizational failure to help me, even though I asked for help outright. And the cultural failure of the fire service that, at that time in my career, saw me as the lagger in the herd. I was the hurt deer and therefore was easy prey. And brotherhood be damned. And it exposed, aside from cultural issues, and I'm sure social psychology, just I keep bringing up groupthink, but that's because it was so prevalent. But what it did do was it revealed the lack of character, the lack of moral fiber in a number of individuals that not only through their actions severely affected my life, they also, through their actions and their words, created a cancer within the fire department and the fire service in general, that spread to other people. How I am still walking this earth, I'm not sure. I was that close. There were a number of things that happened, but possibly the greatest of them was just the lack of support because I was surrounded by people of ill character.
Yep. 100%. Yep. Moral trauma.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. So that's how I went down this character path.
Love it. Well, that fits 100% with the Beneath the Helmet kind of goals and mission, right? Is to
Perfect.
To give people the tools and the ideas and the strategies and the concepts and the stories to be the best elite firefighter you can be, mind, body, and spirit, right? So, and that, leadership is part of that. Self-leadership is part of that. I think if we can't lead ourselves, we got an uphill battle if we can't lead ourselves. And if we need to lead others, then we need to start looking at ourselves first. Yeah.
Amen to that. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, Chief, it's been an honor. It almost sounds like we could probably jump on another episode and dig in deeper in some other areas as well. So stay tuned.
I'm sure we could.
Yeah,
I'm sure we could.
Episode 2.
That's
Chief Robertson.
Well, it happened with Christy Warren. We forgot that the camera was even on, and we just started talking and talking and talking, and it became a 2-parter.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
awesome.
But thank you.
Well, it's been an honor. I consider you a good friend and a colleague in the fire service, and I appreciate the work that you're trying to make some good positive change in the fire service. So I commend you for that, and keep up with the good work. So
Thank you. I'm going to bounce that right back at you, mister. You're doing great stuff. You really are. You're one of the change makers, and it's all good, positive stuff. So if you don't get thanked from anybody in the fire service, hear it now. You are making a difference.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this excellent conversation with Chief Robertson and myself. And until next time, stay well.
Thank you for tuning in to Beneath the Helmet. We hope that this podcast has provided you with valuable insights into the world of firefighters' health and wellness. Remember, caring for your physical, mental, and spiritual well-being is crucial to achieving optimal performance. Join us next time on Beneath the Helmet for more inspiring conversations. Until then, stay well.